Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another short edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and not with me today is not Santoki Nagilendran. Listen, I just wanted to record a little quick one because I've been seeing a lot of discussion about the World Cup, and obviously it's on us sooner rather than later. I think next week, next week Sunday is the IPL final, and pretty much a week after that, give or take a lot of the warm-up games ahead of the World Cup, we're basically into the World Cup. So the World Cup is literally 2.5 weeks away. Because of the never-ending story that is the IPL, it's been kind of hard at times to remember that we have a World Cup on the horizon. Yes, I know that West Indies media are trying to really push this kind of Caribbean and North American World Cup, but it goes to show just how much of a behemoth the IPL is, that no one's really, maybe in the Caribbean some people might argue they are, but no one's really on the World Cup hype as yet. Not as you would be in normal past years, and it speaks to the kind of what do I want to say, the claustrophobic cricket calendar, that we can't even build up to a World Cup, that we can't even have a modicum of real excitement for a World Cup because we've got to wait for the never-ending story to finish first before we can even properly dissect. That notwithstanding, the West Indies cricket team are currently in camp. What I want to call the West Indies A team is largely in camp at the moment, give or take some of the World Cup squad members. So Jason Holder is now there. Obviously, Gudakesh Motie was always there, but a lot of the IPL players are slowly starting to return. I think Santoki's just tweeted that Pooran is now going to fly home because his team is out. Shai Hope will fly home. Let me see who Santoki mentioned. I haven't paid attention to what happened in IPL today, so I need to see what Santoki said. So Pooran's flying home, Shamar Joseph will fly home, and Shai Hope will fly home. So the only West Indian IPL players that will remain, in terms of World Cup players who will remain, are Hetty, Rovman, Dre Russ, Rutherford, and potentially Alzari. So what's the point of me saying all that? Basically, or essentially, on the way home today from work, and actually yesterday as well, I've been thinking a lot about Shai Hope, and if Shai Hope is a certain pick in the West Indies team. And whoever you may be, and whatever your kind of views are on Shai Hope, I implore you to listen to the points I make in this episode, then get in the comments afterwards and kind of just give your take on whether Shai Hope should be a certain 100% starter in the West Indies team going into the World Cup. And what I did earlier on today is I sent a message to Jared Kimber. Now, any of you who are kind of not just West Indian cricket aficionados, if you're just a cricket aficionado in general, you should know who Jared Kimber is. And you should know that when it comes to things like studying the world game, and in this context, studying T20 cricket, and understanding the evolution and development of different cricketers all around the world, he tends to have his kind of finger to the pulse more so than people who get paid a lot more money than him to do so, right? So I sent this is where I want to start. I sent this simple question to Jared earlier on today. At the time of recording, it was about 4.5 hours ago, because I was like, yeah, I'm going to record something tonight, but let me see what Jared says. I said, hey, Jared, in your estimation, is Shai Hope a good T20 player? That's all I said to him. That's not me trying to load the question. That's not me trying to say I don't think he is. I just sent him that question and I left it deliberately open to see what he would say to it. I didn't ask him, should he bat 3 for the West Indies, or has he had a good IPL? I just wanted to know, in the modern day metrics of how we judge a T20 player and whatever role you believe Shai Hope has to fulfill, is he a good T20 player? And this is what Jared said. And Jared doesn't mind me sharing this because I said to him, Jared, I'm probably going to use this in a video I record later. And he said, cool. So Jared said this. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Shai is traditionally horrible, but he has the ability to hit sixes from spin. And he's been doing that as of late. And that is a very marketable skill to have. However, he's not an IPL player. But if he keeps smashing spin, he should become a franchise player around the rest of the world leagues. But what's still apparent is that any sign of danger in an innings, and he still bats too slow for the modern T20 game. Interesting. If you've got any issue with what Jared said there, find him on social media and go cuss him out. But that was Jared's take on it. And I found that pretty interesting because some of that aligned with why I wanted to do this episode today. Because those are some of those things he said were thoughts I was having in regards to Shai and his kind of lock on the position in the West Indies T20 side. Now, let me get this straight first things first. Shai Hope has played the last, how many is it? He's played the last 9 consecutive T20 matches for the West Indies. So I'm not here to say to you lot all who are watching this, I'm not here to say Shai's not going to be in the West Indies team. I think he will be. I'm making that clear now. I think he will start the tournament in the West Indies team, more than likely batting at position number 3 or possibly number 4, one or the other, right? So I'm not here to say to you, Shai Hope is not going to be in the team. I expect him to be in the team. Okay, so let's get that straight first things first. The question I'm asking you is, should he be in the team? So I think he will be, but should he be in the team? Is his position in the side the best for the team composition going into the games in the World Cup, and particularly if we go further into the competition, right? Let me explain. Now, actually, no, before I explain, let me just give his stats. So obviously, he played the last 2 games of the 5-match India T20 series after Johnson Charles got dropped. He came in for the final 2, I believe. He scored 45 from 29 and then 22 not out from 13. Everyone was raving. Strike rate of 155 in the first one and 160 in the second one. I remember it. Everyone was raving. We won the series 3-2, and lots of people came out of that series going, you see, Shai Hope should always have been in our T20 side. He's integral. Cool. Then England, was that a 5-match series versus India? Was it? Yeah, 5-match series. Then England came. Against England, by this point, he had displaced Johnson Charles in the West Indies T20 side. So Charles was out, who'd been batting, I think, at position 3, and Hope was now in. And this is what Hope scored against England. 36 from 30, 1 from 3, 26 from 19, 16 from 8, and 43 not out from 43 balls. West Indies won the series 3-2. His strike rate in those 5 matches, 143, 139, 138, 143, 130. And coming out of that series, I think everybody's take was Shai Hope. This is what I've heard a lot from people. Shai Hope is perfect for the Marlon Samuels role. As West Indian fans, I'm not saying me, I'm just talking in general, we've been besotted with the Marlon Samuels role ever since we won the World Cup in 2012 and 2016. There's been a belief that we need the Marlon Samuels role, and someone has to fulfill the Marlon Samuels role for West Indies to be successful. First thing I want to ask about that is, do any other teams have the Marlon Samuels role? How many teams in the upcoming World Cup have a guy who plays the Marlon Samuels role? And when you answer that question for me, what does the Marlon Samuels role mean? And is the West Indian version of the Marlon Samuels role different to other teams' version of the Marlon Samuels role? Does the Marlon Samuels role even exist in T20 cricket in 2024? Either way, there's a subsection of the West Indian fan base that believe that Shai Hope fulfills the Marlon Samuels role, and therefore he's undroppable. As Jared alluded to in the message that he sent me, He says Shai has developed an ability. Let me read it again. Shai has developed an ability to smash sixes from spin as of late. Shai, as I understand it, from what I've kind of read between the lines from various press conferences and interviews and this and the third, it seems that the West Indies ideally want Nicholas Pooran and Shai Hope to take the bulk of the middle overs where West Indies tend to struggle to rotate strike. So we're talking essentially over 7 to about overs 13, 14. They are hoping, I think, that players like Pooran and Hope, who are the most comfortable batting against spin, are good enough to rotate strike and then accelerate. We know Pooran can do it, but they'd expect the same from Hope, and then can accelerate when it matters closer to the back end. The immediate question I want answered from people watching this, and like I say, try not to just smash your comment already. Try to wait till this is over before you give, hopefully, what is a reasoned response to this. What is an acceptable strike rate for Shai Hope to go at if he's going to be a lock in this West Indies side? What is it that you want him to bat through the innings and have everybody else bat around him going ballistic? So Pooran, Powell, Rutherford, whether it's Hetmeyer, Dre Russ, Romario Shepherd. Is it that you want Hope to just kind of bat through? And if so, what is an acceptable strike rate that he should be batting through at? I think a lot of people have to ask themselves that question, right? Okay. In essence, I'm saying, what is his role? Now, currently in the IPL, I say currently, his team's been knocked out of the IPL. Shai Hope played 9 matches in the IPL this year, played far more than probably a lot of West Indian fans would have expected him to. He scored 183 runs at an average of 23, if that matters to you, and a strike rate of 150. For those of you who are, and I think for Delhi, he largely batted, let me just double check. Yeah, for Delhi, he largely batted at number 3. So his role for Delhi was essentially what we'd expect his role to be for the West Indies. Okay, batting at number 3. And after the 9 matches for Delhi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, after his 9 matches for Delhi, he averaged, his strike rate was 150 with an average of 23. Is that good enough? So for the IPL fans watching this, was Shai Hope's performances for Delhi good enough? And is that something that his performances for Delhi across the 9-match piece, would you be happy with him if he transposed those performances for Delhi into West Indies performances in the World Cup? If that's his current performance metric, those, again, hardcore IPL fans, were you happy with what he did for Delhi? And would you be happy if he replicated that for the West Indies, the exact same kind of stats, averaging 23, strike rate of 150? Is that good enough? And if it is, then I guess he's a lock in your side, right? But here's the problem. As we saw against India and particularly against England, the West Indies strategy against England was largely to bowl 5 bowlers only. And largely speaking, if we look at that England series in particular, which everyone has raved about and said we won 3-2, and therefore we've got a really good chance of winning the World Cup, okay? Largely speaking, those 5 bowlers were Gudakesh Moti, Alzari Joseph, Akil Hussain, Andre Russell, technically Jason Holder, right? Those were technically the players who bowled the majority of the overs in terms of 5 overs, in terms of the 20 overs, I should say, across the piece. When we tried to turn to a 6th bowler, we had Carl Mayers bowl 1, Shafane Rutherford bowled 1. We essentially did not have a 6th bowler. Now, in that England series where we did not have a 6th bowler, let me just find the results again. Bear with me, people, because I think it's important to state this. Here we go. So in that England T20 series, that 5 bowler strategy gave up. Actually, in the first T20, it bowled England out for 171. Second one, it bowled England out for 166. Oh no, it didn't bowl them out. Sorry, restricted them to 166 for 7. Third one, they gave up. England chased 222 in under 20 overs. Fourth one, England posted 267 for 3 from the 20 overs. And then last one, England were bowled out for 132. I think it's fair to say that the West Indies 5 bowler strategy is a bit of a hit or miss strategy. And in the cut and thrust of a World Cup, if winning the World Cup is a real strategy that the West Indies claim, or sorry, is a real goal the West Indies claim they have for this tournament, is a 5-bowler strategy competent enough to go deep in this World Cup? Is the 5-bowler strategy competent enough to win the World Cup based on what we have seen thus far in the eye test of what we've done in England, against India, and bits and pieces against Australia? If Shai, and now let's pivot back to Shai. If Shai Hope is to play in this West Indies team in the T20 World Cup, it is basically impossible for West Indies to have a 6th bowler, because some of the players in the top 6 and 7 are already set. King is set, Johnson Charles is set. Let's say Shai Hope is set. That's him set, right? Make sure you're writing these down. Pooran is set. Rovman Powell is set. Rutherford or Hetmeyer is set. Dre is set. Romario is set. That's 8 players, right? You'd think they're set. Maybe Jason Holder for Romario, we don't know. But either way, if that top 8 is what we think it's going to be, even if Hetmeyer replaces Rutherford or Holder replaces Romario, whatever it may be, that does not give you a 6th bowler. At current, if we go into the World Cup with that as our lineup, the person we would have to be, the players we would have to be forced to turn to in case one of our 5 bowlers got serious tap. Worst case scenario would be if more than one of the bowlers got serious tap. You'd have to turn to Rovman Powell or Shafane Rutherford to bowl some medium pace seam up deliveries and just pray and hope they can do something. Is that a good enough, competent enough strategy in the cut and thrust of a knockout competition? Or does Roston Chase have to get into a West Indies lineup to provide a possible 6th bowling option? Now, hear me out. If you believe Roston Chase does have to get into the West Indies lineup to, bear with me, people. If you believe Roston Chase does have to get into the West Indies lineup to replace someone, and he has to replace someone, sorry, I'm trying to find some details whilst I'm talking, which isn't very good. But if you believe that Roston has to do that, then the obvious player for Roston to replace would be Shai Hope. Because I'm not saying Roston is as good as Hope. I'm not saying that Roston can rotate strikers efficiently as Hope, or hit 6s off spin as efficiently as Hope has shown as of late. But if you are telling me that Shai Hope's role, so this is where I pivot back to what you lot are all saying, right? Or some of you are saying, if you are telling me that Shai Hope's role in the West Indies team is the Marlon Samuel's role, are you telling me that Roston Chase can't also do that role? Hence why I said, define for me what is the Marlon Samuel's role. What does that mean for you? If it means someone to essentially ensure that the innings doesn't fall apart, are we saying that Roston Chase can't do that as well? Are we saying that Hope is the only player in the side that can do that? And it's all about weighing up strengths and weaknesses here. Does the West Indies side need Shai Hope to win matches? Or is it better, and is it better for team balance, to have Roston Chase in instead of Hope to make sure that there is a spinner who turns the ball the other way, and more importantly, that there is a 6th bowling option if needed, to better balance out the composition of the side? Effectively, what I'm saying is, with Hope, West Indies will probably back down to 8, right? But have no 6th bowling option. Without Hope and bringing in Chase, West Indies still back down to 8, but have a 6th bowling option. Where do you stand on that? Some of you may say, boy, yeah. Some of you may even say, yeah, Mash, I've got Hope out, but it's Hetmeyer I have coming in. Cool. Still doesn't answer the 6th bowling conundrum. So is Shai Hope, let's go to the title of the video. Is Shai Hope a certain pick in the West Indies T20 side? He was for Australia, he was for England, and he was at the back end of the India series. He is the incumbent. He's the incumbent number 3 or number 4. But this is all about horses for courses. Does it matter if you are the incumbent if it's not the best thing for team composition? Ladies and gentlemen, followers, supporters, or just random listeners of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, I've posed a lot of questions there. What would you do? What would you do? Shai Hope him or Shai Hope out? My name is Machel St. Patrick here at one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. As ever, like, share, subscribe. There's plenty of people imitating what the Caribbean Cricket Podcast does. There's plenty of people preying what the Caribbean Cricket Podcast does, and then they just repeat the content. Let me tell you lot something. We were the originals. We are the originals. We were the first, and we'll be the last to keep doing this type of content. I sometimes have to come for people's necks on this stuff, you know. What's the phrase? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I see you. I see you all. I'm Machel St. Patrick here at one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. You can find us at Carib Cricket, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. And last of all, of course, if you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. Content can't done, content can't stop. See you soon.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.